Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this series on our first virtual series on mental health, combating stigma and creating the right mindset. We're delighted that you took the time off on this Friday afternoon to meet with us and to learn more about mental wellness, and in particular, what is the global trends, local and global trends in terms of mental wellness. We're delighted to have you here, and we hope that you will learn a lot about this very, very prominent topic that's being discussed in almost all HSE forums globally, South Africa as well as internationally. And in addition to welcoming you at this session on behalf of Safety Cloud, the management of Safety Cloud, it's a huge privilege for me to also just welcome our panelists to this session. And we are really excited about the fact that we have the best minds in South Africa and also the best minds internationally. So, and I unfortunately cannot read everyone's CV, because then we will just listen to CVs. So I'm just, before we start with the first question, going to introduce the panelists very shortly and in no particular order. However, I would like to start by welcoming Chantal Gray, who is the MD of Safety Cloud. Welcome, Chantal, and thank you for making the time available to join us. We have Dr. Eugene Kemp, which is a very, very prominent psychologist in South Africa. He's done a lot of corporate training. He's been coaching and counseling a lot of senior executives in the country. Very delighted to have Ada Frank, who I've been working very closely for the past couple of months. And Ada is a clinical psychologist and CEO of the Frank Institute. And Ada will tell us a bit later about her tool, which we believe is also world-class in the world. Then Karen de Jager, who is Head of Group Compliance at Safety SA. And Karen has a huge passion for mental wellness and for working with employees, and she's been very instrumental in the work that Safety Cloud has been doing for the past few months in this area. Karen, we're delighted to have you this afternoon. Then Dr. Carmen Maritz. Carmen is also very well known in South Africa, very prominent figure in the wellness industry, and she is the Managing Director of Icon to Oak. Then a bit later this afternoon at past, we will be joined by Chris de Meester. Chris will be joining us all the way from lovely, sunny, I believe, Brussels in Belgium. And Chris is the Health and Safety Affairs Head of the International Industrial Relations Manager, and he works very closely with the International Organization of Employers and the World Health Organization. So we will be welcoming Chris to the panel a bit later to tell us a little bit about what's happening in the international front. And is the international organizations experiencing the same challenges that we are experiencing in this industry? So we have quite a action-packed agenda this afternoon, and if you have questions, please feel free to make use of the chat facility, or you are also most welcome to contact me after the session if you would like to have further questions on mental wellness, or if you would like to reach one of the panelists. So many thanks for joining us again. And I would like to start this session and direct the session to Dr. Eugene Kemp. Eugene, a lot has been said about mental wellness, and it's now been scientifically proven that mental wellness has got a massive impact on physical safety. It's been scientifically proven. The World Health Organization and the International Organization of Employers have done a lot of studies that scientifically prove that this is indeed the case. But there's also a lot of definitions and misunderstandings in the industry about specifically what is mental wellness. So I'm keen to hear from you and from Ada about how would you define mental wellness? If somebody asks you what does mental wellness mean, what would you say, and what are the typical symptoms associated with mental wellness? Eugene, over to you.
Jan, I'm going to not put my camera on. We've got load shedding. Dione, I'm sure you're also aware of that. So for bandwidth purposes, I'm just going to keep the audio on. Can you hear me clearly?
We can, thank you.
Yes, I mean, when we discuss mental wellness, I'm always very excited. And I think even in a so-called post-COVID era, it's so important to discuss this. I think the World Health Organization's definition of mental wellness and well-being is quite a good one. It says that mental wellness and well-being is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Now, what is great about this definition is that it clarifies the fact that we're not talking about mental illness. A lot of companies will say, well, we're not into this whole mental health, mental wellness thing because, you know, if there's something wrong with somebody, they need to go and see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But mental well-being, wellness is about the individual's well-being to cope within a work environment, within a personal environment, not moving from being sick to getting well, but moving from maybe surviving and struggling with all the challenges of today to a point where they can thrive. So I think that's very much part of you know, the challenges today. And yesterday, day before yesterday, masks and a lot of restrictions were removed. But we still sit with huge challenges. I think what happened with COVID is companies realized that mental well-being impacts largely on the productivity, the happiness of the individual, and a lot of other things that we will still discuss. I think I'm going to give over to Ada. I think for now, that's just the definition that I want to, you know, stay with and stick with. Which I think is a nice description of what it's all about. It's about normal functioning, day-to-day functioning, that ability to thrive within a work environment and in your personal environment.
Thank you, Eugene. Ada, do you agree with Eugene's view on how he defines mental wellness in support of the World Health Organization? Ada? So I think Ada might. Hello?
I think you guys can hear me now. I completely agree. I couldn't agree more. And we tend to think about mental wellness and we firstly focus on the mental ill aspect. And as Dr. Kemp beautifully put, it's not just, you know, mental health is so much more than just the absence of mental illness. It focuses on productivity, living a full range of your emotional capacity, and then obviously to manage everyday challenges in a way that still lets us thrive. So I couldn't agree more, 100% same page.
Ada, and then maybe if you can perhaps give us an indication of what is the typical, and I'm sure symptoms isn't quite the right word, but what are the typical behavior that a person will display when he is having mental wellness challenges in the workplace?
In the workplace specifically, I think we deal with so much that we try to hide, and we try to canvas to come across as professional, that a lot of suppression happens. And when we have to suppress a big charge of emotional or psychological experience, we start to behave uncharacteristically. So we speak about changes in the character of the individual. We see decreases in productivity, low levels of engagements with colleagues, low levels of engagement with the actual work at hand. Changes in normal behaviors like poor sleeping, poor energy, low appetite. Disinterest generally in all sorts of workplace engagement. More absence, and that goes to physical absence from work, but also what we call presenteeism, somebody who's actually at work, but quite withdrawn from their tasks, easily distracted. Withdrawing socially, obviously from colleagues, but also where there are workplace endeavors to get groups to work together, that resistance to participate in that. And then often at work, we also deal with substance abuse issues, which is usually an indication that the individual is really struggling to navigate their challenges in a different way. There's obviously loads more, but these definitely sit at the core of, let's call it, symptoms that we'll see if a person is struggling with their mental wellness.
Thank you for that, Ada. But Eugene, COVID is over now, and I think we see that the economy is slowly but surely improving. People are returning to the workplace. We do see hybrid work models. But so how relevant is mental wellness? And can we assume that everyone has recovered from COVID and have managed to deal with remote working and the hybrid workplace model, or how do you see the situation post-COVID?
I think, and people call it the post-COVID stress syndrome. I think it's so important. It's actually more important now after, a lot of people say we must not be so sure that it's really gone, but let's call it a post-COVID period, that it's even more important now to focus on mental health. It's, if you think back, the Vietnam War, for example, the mental health issues only surfaced after the war, after the real intensity of war. And I think we're sitting with the same scenario now. And I'm picking up also in my private practice that, and when I work with companies, that anxiety, stress is at an all-time high, more than ever. And it's almost like now that we can relax and don't need to fight the COVID enemy, the mental health issues surface. And so yes, I think it's more than ever important. It's and you must remember, we still sit with the uncertainty. Can it come back? And uncertainty is a monster that creates a lot of mental wellness and impacts on our well-being and causing stress and all that. I think it's so relevant, even more so than with when we were in the real intense COVID period.
Thank you, Eugene. Karen, if I can ask you, just in general, how did you experience your professional career and dealing with remote work and pre and post COVID? How did COVID affect you, and how did you experience COVID and remote work affect colleagues that you deal with?
Thank you, Diane. I think we live in very stressful times. Pre-COVID, we live in South Africa. There's a lot of economical, financial crime. It's a rat race lifestyle we adapting to overall, and also there's pressures of social media, constant stressor factors that are in our lives. And then COVID came and slammed us into a whole different reality. I think being confined to our homes, being a single parent myself, I had to adapt to working at home, working from home while raising a 3-year-old. It was a challenge, and you do all of that in isolation. So I think it was also the fear of losing your income. A lot of people lost their income. There's also the fear of losing your own health, people close to you. There's overall a lot of loss, and that's created a lot of stress for people during COVID. And now that we have relaxed regulations, now we have to adapt to going back to a more normal reality, which causes stress in itself again.
Absolutely. And just reflecting on what you've said, if you are aware of colleagues that felt during this period that they needed to reach out to somebody for assistance, even if it is just somebody to check in with on a daily basis, who would you typically prefer to reach out to? Would you reach out to your organization and liaise with the employee wellness program? Or who would you prefer to liaise with to get support?
Diane, I think it's difficult to speak up about one's own mental health. I think for anyone, it would be uncomfortable to reach out to your employer. There would be fears around looking like you're not coping with your job, fear that it might jeopardize the position that you are in, also possible embarrassment that you do have mental health issues, all around the stigmas around mental health that's always been there. I personally would reach out to an external psychologist or counselor, only because I had to deal with mental health issues at a young age, and I could learn that there is actually help out there and there are tools available. But I don't think that's necessarily the case for everyone, because in school we learn about maths and science, but we don't learn about self-care and how to basically, be aware of your own mental health and what tools are available.
Thank you, Corin. I fully agree with you, and I think and having working closely with Eugene and Ada and others, it's also quite evident that, you know, although people have a need to reach out to somebody, they typically almost look to an organization for advice, you know, as to who to go to. But it's an interesting situation because they want to manage their wellness journey almost away from the organization, but still they feel that the organization to a large extent have almost like a responsibility to assist them. So it's quite a challenging environment. Corin, what are the 3 most important criteria or requirements for you that will make you enroll, for instance, in a course on mental wellness? What would you typically look for if you now feel that you want to learn more about mental wellness and you go onto the internet and you find a myriad of options? What would be the 3 key things that would make you decide to enroll for a specific course in mental wellness?
Yeah, I think firstly, it should address real challenges, not be overly academic or theoretical, but be more have a practical approach and address real issues. I think it should also be short and agile, easily accessible, not to consume too much time. I don't think anybody's got the time to spend 2 weeks out of the office to do a mental wellness course. And I also think it should be engaging and introduce real mental health tools to a person.
Absolutely, I fully agree with you. Carmen, Dr. Carmen Maritz, if I can bring you into the conversation, because it is quite evident that mental wellness that's always almost been regarded as something that's traditionally been dealt with people in the HR portfolio of organizations. It's very clear, and international trends also show that mental wellness is slowly but surely being repositioned as HSE, health, safety and environment function, simply because of the fact that mental wellness is now such a major topic and have such a determining effect actually on how people perform in the workplace and their ability to concentrate, as Ada has just referred to. So my question to you is, has mental wellness always been part of the health, safety and environment portfolio, or should it remain in the domain of HR?
Okay, Diani, thank you very much. In my personal experience, it's become quite evident that it used to be a function that fell within the auspices of the HR department. And I want to specifically say the HR department and the HR department only, because saying this with a lot of respect, a couple of years ago, employee wellness was considered to be a soft issue, especially in industries like the mining environment, mechanical and engineering and production environments, where it's not tangible. So a focus from top management was not necessarily placed on something like employee wellness, you know, and because you can't necessarily measure it. Luckily today there are a lot of tools and criteria which a person can use to show what the return on that investment is if a person does then invest in your employees. But it's definitely been something that's been part of the HR fraternity, and I don't think buy-in from other structures or departments within a company was always at the level where a person would have hoped or expected it to be. But we have seen in the past couple of years there's been a very big transformation in terms of employee wellness from a holistic point of view, focusing on the psychological and the physical wellness of employees. And I think because physical wellness have become part of this, health and safety departments have become involved in the overall employee wellness intervention that we would see wanted to be implemented in a company. So we very often, from a health and safety department point of view, we often focus on for example, let's say we've got an accident at a plant or at a mine or at a workplace. Immediately the company conducts a root cause analysis, or they conduct hazard identification and risk assessment to identify what the cause of the physical accident was, the accident or the electrocution or the slip and fall or the fall of ground or whatever the case may be. And there are investigation teams and reports are filled in, and a lot of research and work goes into that. But when we establish higher levels of, let's say, absenteeism or higher levels of turnover intention, or a reduction in our staff's innovative thinking or problem solving, we don't necessarily investigate what the cause thereof is. And a person, I think, would perhaps like to see the same manner in which we deal with root cause analysis, dealing with physical accidents or injuries at the workplace. A person should also focus on what the causes of accidents are that may not be as measurable as a physical incident or accident, but to establish why certain individuals or employees are experiencing stress or challenges or a reduction in productivity, etc. So it used to be something that fall within the auspices of the HR department, but it's definitely moved over to a health and safety department perspective. And I think also majorly or within a company, the certain structures within this company has become more involved, not only health and safety and HR, but more from a holistic point of view. Employers have started to realize what the importance is of having employees in a workplace who are healthy, happy, and who are assisted by the company to work within an environment that is conducive for their functioning and their development.
Thank you for that, Carmen. Yes, I agree with you. And a follow-up question to you really is that in your experience, how do companies, what type of support do companies typically give to employees in respect of mental wellness? Or is it something that we've always been hesitant to deal with because, you know, and I think Karen alluded to the fact that we don't learn about mental wellness at school and how to deal with mental wellness, but and I think I speak under correction, but I don't think that there's any MBL or MBA curriculum that deals with mental wellness either. So should you have a colleague that's struggling with mental wellness, what would be the expectation be from the manager and from HR?
Dione, I think we also need to start moving towards a more customized solution, depending on the client and the inherent requirements of the client and the operational challenges, etc. I think a couple of years ago, a lot of the corporate companies would become a member of a typical employee assistance program, where there's a hotline or there's a number that you can contact should you experience certain challenges or, where you find it difficult to deal with certain things, either in your personal life and or at work. But we've also now experienced that with COVID having such a massive impact on people's well-being, in where people already feel isolated, and not being able to interact with colleagues or with a mentor at the workplace or with fellow employees or with a manager, there's definitely a trend towards having personal contact with someone and not necessarily working through an employee assistance program where you telephonically speak to someone about your problem. So it is, to me, a combination of physical contact, having a counsellor available at the workplace, having an industrial psychologist available at the workplace, or a clinical psychologist who would then schedule sessions with employees to come and talk about challenges that they have experienced. Hosting employee wellness days, for example, making employees aware of certain topics, identifying relevant topics, and creating awareness, educating employees about certain topics. So it's not only the solution you can't apply necessarily across the board for everyone. I think we should move towards having a wider array of differences in services, whether it be online, whether it be in person, whether it's hosting wellness days. But there's definitely a tendency where employees say, I've had to speak to my colleagues and my managers over Teams or telephonically for the past 2.5 years. I don't want to speak to a counselor or a psychologist in the same manner. I want to physically be with someone who can also observe my mannerism, observe the trauma that I've been through, and assist me and help me to work through the process to become a healthier, happier, more productive employee.
Absolutely. And it's quite interesting just by listening to you, you know, I've realized how complex this topic really is, because there's the expectation from the organization, but yet the employee wants to be wants this discussion to be a confidential discussion to a large extent. So it is quite a challenging topic, you know, and some people prefer online, and some people, as you've rightfully mentioned, prefer face-to-face. However, just by listening to you, and what I'm very excited about is the fact that there seems to be a massive opportunity for HR departments and for individuals in HSE portfolios to collaborate more and to work together a lot closer. And for me, that's very exciting, because I think traditionally we've always seen health and safety as a very, very, very a physical function that works on an operational level. You know, it's really dealing with the health and safety and the risks that people at the coal face are exposed to. But now it's an entire outlook on the health and safety of employees. So I'm excited about the opportunity that this topic presents for HSE and HR professionals to collaborate. Do you agree? And am I right when I say that?
Yes, absolutely, Dione, and I think especially a company like yours that render a service more than it renders a product or delivers a product to a client. Having employees who are resilient, having employees who can apply innovative thinking, who can resolve problems. It's when a person looks at the fourth industrial revolution and the challenges and opportunities that this transformation is going to bring about in the workplace, and a person focuses on the skills that we would require from our human capital, it's totally different to the skills that we needed 10 years ago and that we currently need. And then, I mean, if you read up on the characteristics that our human capital must possess by 2025, it's a lot more focused on being emotionally aware of who you are, self-awareness, having higher levels of problem solving, creative thinking, etc. So a very strong focus is placed on emotional intelligence. And for a company to remain competitive and sustainable amidst all these challenges that we've had and external factors which have impacted on companies that are beyond our control, having a workforce that are healthy and happy is such an integral part of a company's success. So we cannot expect departments like solely the HR department and to a certain extent the health, safety and environmental departments to take on this responsibility. Working in silos regarding employee wellness will not have the desired effect, and it will not be effective. So it must be incorporated, in my opinion, into the overall strategy of a company and the culture of the company to foster and maintain certain interventions in a workplace where a much stronger focus will be placed on employee wellness than we've seen in the past 10 years. So offering that assistance to an employee would become almost the responsibility of each and every manager, each and every supervisor or foreman. They must actually be trained and so in touch with their employees that they immediately know who needs assistance, because people find it difficult to talk about certain challenges, but our managers and supervisors and foremen must be so focused and intact with feelings of their teams that they would easily be able to identify and then refer it to the relevant department who would make, you know, the necessary arrangements. But it's going to become the responsibility of each and every manager or person who have subordinates reporting to them. So placing the responsibility on a certain department in a company is definitely not going to have the desired effect. There needs to be interaction and liaison between the various departments, and it needs to become a much more stronger focus in terms of the overall 1 year, 5 year, 10 year planning of any corporate company.
Absolutely. Carmen, I have a lot more questions for our other delegates, but I want to ask you because it's really important for me. You've mentioned about the fact that managers need to be able to deal with the wellness of their teams and their subordinates. But how does organizations support managers to be able to help their employees and their reports? What are currently in place in organizations in terms of training?
Dihani, unfortunately, not much. We deal with various clients across various industries in terms of conducting their workplace skills planning and reporting on training, which was done. And to a certain extent, it is understandable, especially during this COVID pandemic, that company had to cut costs. Companies had to reduce their workforce. Company had to, cut expenditure just to survive basically through this whole COVID pandemic. So unfortunately, one of the first budgets that are usually cut would be within the HR department and specifically the training budget. And then companies tend to focus on the critical technical training rather than focusing on softer skills training, interpersonal skills training, emotional intelligence training. But it is a very important matter, and it is something we need to empower our supervisors and managers, because in most of the cases, the managers and supervisors are technical experts or subject matter experts within their own fields, whether it be whatever the case may be within the various departments, but they do not, unfortunately, through education and tertiary qualifications necessarily obtain the skills that they need to manage people and manage people's feelings and manage people's wellness and manage people's output and performance. So training is definitely a very big part thereof. And apart from training, a person can also assist managers by means of a little bit of on-the-job coaching or counseling or professional coaching to assist them to identify this. But we also can't expect from our managers just to miraculously know how to deal with employees' uncertainties and challenges and mental illnesses or physical illnesses within a workplace. But it is unfortunately something that has not received the necessary attention or focus. But I'm sure now, with all of us being very positive about the economical growth that we would hopefully experience in our country now that the COVID restrictions have been relaxed, hopefully that is something where companies will start investing and budgeting to make sure that those employees, managers are empowered within the workplace.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you so much. I want to ask Chantal Gray, who is the MD of Safety Cloud, her view on training in terms of mental wellness. And the question is specifically directed at Chantal because Safety Cloud has listened to the industry. Safety Cloud has looked at what is the needs of the industry, and they have decided to invest in mental wellness training. So I would like to hand over to Chantal to tell us why she, as the MD of Safety Cloud, supports the fact that we agree that training is a critical part of the mental wellness journey, perhaps not the only component, but most certainly a very critical first step in terms of mental wellness and addressing mental wellness challenges. Chantal, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Dione. Thank you very much. Yeah, Dione, I most certainly agree with you. And I think that addressing mental wellness through training is definitely one of the best solutions in this regard. People who experience good mental health at work are more likely to do well at work, and they're also more satisfied with life and end up having better interpersonal skills. Since the onset of COVID-19, mental health in the workplace has been at the top of everyone's mind. And while the pandemic has highlighted the importance of well-being at work, mental health training has benefited several organizations way beyond coping with just the pandemic. Mental health wellness in the workplace it's a subfield of occupational health science. one in which certain studies have shown how different occupations and their day-to-day processes can impact the mental and emotional health of all employees. Currently, I think there are about 200, maybe more, mental health disorders. And when mental wellness concerns such as stress, anxiety, and depressions are very distracting for individuals who are suffering from them, and they can really become all-consuming. So when employees experience mental health issues, they can't maintain their normal ability to think clearly, and this has a negative impact on not only on their productivity, but on their daily lives as well. And therefore, they need tools, and the employer needs tools to be able to support and assist these employees in overcoming these struggles so that they can become more productive and continue to be well-engaged employees. There are also several studies that show that managers with access to mental health training, because bear in mind, they're not psychologists, they're not professionals, okay, but if they have this knowledge behind them, they can take this into their workplaces. It's been proven that they have better ability to be able to support those that suffer from, the likes of panic attacks, mental breakdowns, employee burnout, which is exceptionally prevalent right now, after the strains of COVID. But beyond the health benefits to employees, it's also been noted that mental wellness training increases productivity. It reduces absenteeism and it supports business growth. So all in all, we get a win-win situation because it's good for people and it's also good for the organization. In a recent study conducted by the World Health Organizations, it's been estimated that mental illness costs the global economy about $1 trillion a year. In lost productivity. But they also found that for every dollar spent by an organization treating these mental health concerns, this saw the same organization put $4 back into the organization in the way of productivity. So that just shows that there's a triple return for any organization that is willing to invest in the health and wellness of their staff. And this highlights significantly the important role that mental wellness has to play within many organizations. With regards to mental health training, it also delivers a value that helps staff throughout the company's hierarchy. So we're talking about all the way from the CEOs all the way down to the junior members of staff. And it has a significant impact in building positive cultures around support, empathy, and treating others well. And we find that within the supportive environment, staff are empowered to build resilience and to also recognize others who may need support. So as a leading provider of health and safety solutions, Safety Cloud has identified the critical need for training in this sphere, and hence us bringing our two new programs to market, the one for mental health for managers and the other one, mental health and wellness for employees. Some of the key areas that are touched on in these programs revolve around building skills that will assist managers and employees to assess and recognize common stresses in the workplace, to deal with stress management, to deal with conflict resolution, which goes way beyond, health and wellness. We deal with effective management skills, good time management, and also spend quite a considerable amount of time on building emotional intelligence and mindfulness and resilience, which are really, really important to ensure that employees and employers can move forward. Because mental health disorders are not visible to the naked eye, people can appear to be very, very healthy while actually concealing their struggles. And we believe that we can now supply tools that will allow managers and employees to recognize mental health distress in themselves and in others, and we believe that this will then contribute positively towards employee personal growth and organizational growth. And, at this point in time where we are moving from one phase to another and things are changing so quickly, we don't think that there is a bigger need for health and wellness training right now.
Thank you, Chantal.
Thank you.
For that. Yes, I fully agree. And I must say, I'm very, very excited to see the programs that's been developed by Safety Cloud. And I am also aware that they've worked very closely with a leading expert in the health and safety industry. So I think we are all very, very excited. And I know the products has been launched. It's really amazing that Safety Cloud has been able to bring this to the market and respond to industry needs in this way. Chris, are you online already or not yet? Chris de Meester? Not yet. I know you've traveled extensively, and I know. Hi, Chris. Welcome. It's great to have you joining us all the way from Brussels, and I'm sure it's a lot warmer where you are than where we are. So welcome, Chris. We are very keen to hear what is the international view on mental wellness, and are we in South Africa experiencing the same challenges that people are experiencing international? So what is being said at the World Health Organization and the International Organization of Employers at the GOSH Network? What is the talk internationally on mental wellness?
Well, Diony, globally, the levels of awareness are quite different. No surprise. In different countries throughout the world, the level of awareness is surely different. But if we would look at, let's say, those countries or businesses that are, let's say, in a more developed economy, then it is clear that this is a concern. It is always one of the elements. If we look for topics for a next meeting, whether that is purely with business people, or when it's together with trade unions or people from the institutions, it's always the first point that comes to the table. We need to talk more, we need to discuss more about mental health and work. But also a common denominator is everybody is struggling in finding the right approach. And also what is striking me is very quickly, surely if you talk to people that are active at the more political and institutional level, mental health, and then 1 minute later they are talking about people, about workers in terms of assessment structures, programs, so that they already lose me. If as soon as they start reducing people to assessing them, putting them in structures and programs, they lose me, because I don't think that is the right approach. But I know there is another question about approach, so I'll not go in detail. Also, a global observation is we often, all of us often make the mistake to not distinguish between the macro level and the micro level of the individual. Everything I heard already in the discussion about changes in the world of work, COVID, etc. At the macro level, surely those challenges are visible. If you go down to the meso level, the level of, let's say, branches of the economy or individual businesses, it's already not so obvious anymore, because even during the COVID pandemic, a lot of businesses just continued business as usual. And if you go down to the micro level of individuals, then you will see that, okay, there is quite a lot of people with anxiety, stress, etc., but also a whole bunch of people that were actually more at ease during COVID, because more focus on themselves, on their family life. So the picture is very different, and we should not look at with the same view if you talk about the macro level and the level of the individual worker. Completely different mindset. You need to look at those from a different angle.
Thank you for that comprehensive response, Chris. So I'm going to throw you in at the deep end, and I'm going to ask you. So what are companies doing, on a day-to-day level? Or we've now heard about Safety Cloud's response to the needs of industries, but what is the trends internationally, and what is, for instance, the trend in Brussels? What do these large employers like Toyota and all these big employers, what do they do on a day-to-day basis?
I would say, I will tell you what I think they need to do and where they are, but I do observe a kind of trend, a shift. Those companies that are already, let's say, at a quite high level of awareness, I observe now a shift in their approach, because you can have two different kinds of approaches. One is you aim for the presence of something, or you aim for the absence of something. You aim for the absence of accident, you aim for the absence of ill health, you aim for the absence of mental health problems. The other approach is you aim for the presence of something. You aim for an organization where people are able and willing to do their best work. That is about motivation, engagement. Now, if you aim for the presence of something, with much less effort, you will yield far better results. As long as you continue on the route of what I say, the risk assessment approach route, you will invest a lot of time and money that will lead you nowhere. For example, in Belgium, well-being, as we call it, it's part of our legal and institutional framework for over 20 years now, but very much with an approach based on risk assessment, dealing with the risks. And where are we? Nowhere. So we need the mind shift, and we need to aim for the presence of an engaged, motivated workforce. We need to try to create this organization where the workers are indeed able and willing to do their best work. That means you look at the individual with skills, with aspirations, with values, with their health condition also, and that needs to be brought in balance with their work situation. That is the workload, that is working conditions, both in terms of pay, leave, etc., but also the physical work environment, occupational safety and health, and the work relations, how you collaborate with colleagues, clients, your manager, top management, and you need to find the balance, and it's a dynamic balance. Your aspirations are not the same if you work 10 years in a job than when you started. So it's a dynamic system, a dynamic approach. And just to give you one example of the risk-based approach, the same factors that thrive, that make people thrive, that make an engaged workforce, those can also be risk factors. For example, workload. Too heavy workload could be a problem, but at the same time, if your workload, the job you're doing is actually what you love to do, what drives you, motivates you, you will be engaged. Responsibilities, for some people, they fear responsibility. It makes them stressful. Others, their aspiration is to have a lot of responsibility. Autonomy, 20% of the workforce cannot handle autonomy. For the rest, it is an instrument to find the balance. So you already understand, if you only focus on risks, you will never get there, because you need you need to take into account all elements. So, and there I see a shift now. More and more companies start to have, instead of focusing on mental health or accidents or whatever, they focus on work. Everything related to work, the skills in relation to the job you do, your aspirations for your career, etc. Purpose, that is, does your job match your values? If environmental values are very high on your agenda and you're an engineer in a petrochemical plant, there will be a clash somewhere in the future. So all these elements are important, and if you take them into account, and the risk methodologies for that and training at all levels is part of the approach, then you are able to create this organization. It's hard work, it's everyday work. It's not about giving responsibility to the HR function or to the OSH function, because it's about everybody, including the workers as architects of their careers.
Yes. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that inspiring but also challenging response. We are running out of time, and I can see there's quite a few questions coming in. So I want to end off the session by asking Dr. Ada Franke, who is CEO of the Frank Institute. Ada, I am aware that you've developed a digital platform, if that's the right way to speak about Frank. And what particularly struck me about the solution is that it encompasses the entire wellness journey of an individual. And what I like about it is the fact that although a company can provide the tool to its employees, but still the employee remains his privacy and the confidentiality about it. So I want to give you a few minutes just to tell us how you've managed to overcome those two challenges. Thank you so much, Ada.
Thank you, Dione. I think just to start off, the word digital, I think we've used quite a lot today. And the latest stats just confirm again, more people in the world actually have access to a mobile smartphone than people have access to usable drinking water. So if we were wondering, how to put the solution out there, then the digital solution is obviously the way to go. With the Frank solution, it's an end-to-end solution. We realized that we cannot offer a solution without offering the support to the people who have to provide the solution. So we are focusing a lot on therapists, counselors, life coaches, any form of individual who can offer that kind of service. And we built a beautiful tool to enhance their ability to offer their services online. But the tool in hand, and if mobile phones are in the hands of so many people, if we want to change wellness for an individual, and I love so much that it was just said, a job match, for instance, is such an important thing. If your job match is not well placed, then we can afford millions and millions of rands, dollars, euros per year to a program that will not work because the individual's use in hand is still in a mismatched situation. And that counts for employment, that counts for our relationships, it counts for our whole lives. But what Frank has built is a digital solution, it's an in-hand solution, and we call it a hybrid solution. So it has beautifully developed AI, digital tech built into it, to match the era that we're in, but it never leaves a human out of the loop. So with a human in the loop, we mean that there is a person on the other end, and in the helping faculty, there's also a person. Now, whether you link with that person online in a virtual setting or face-to-face in rooms, that tech solution becomes the hybrid that brings that beautiful mix for us. And in that built in, we're obviously very, very excited to see what the data, I see somebody right in the beginning asked, how are we going to measure the effectivity of all of these things? With digital comes access to beautiful, layered, complex data from which we can gain answers and hopefully then recreate and rebuild and update tech solutions and digital solutions like this in future. But the Frank Solutions focus is what we call a find and guide mechanism. You find the individual where they are, whether you are in a dire situation, whether you are in a major stress situation, or whether you're actually flourishing, but you're trying to struggle, or you're struggling with work-life balance. Wherever this solution finds you, it can guide you to the place where you need to be. So either out of dysfunction into a functional space, or from a functional space to a flourishing space, or just helping you maintain your flourishing space, helping you to kind of make it give it some longevity and some sustainability. So that's kind of to do this as short and sweet as possible. But in the end of the day, we need to give people something in their hand, because the three things worldwide, globally, that keeps people from finding the help they need is firstly the stigma. We don't have to go into that. We're all very aware of the mental health, mental wellness stigma out there. When I have crossed my barrier in terms of the stigma, is this thing actually available? Can I access it in times and in places that is comfortable and safe and okay for me to access? So stigma, availability, and then very important, affordability. I can cross the first two barriers, but if the solution is not affordable, I won't use it. So the digital space makes that available for us, that we can manage the stigma, really protect people's confidentiality, keep empowering them, make it available and affordable at the same time. I hope that answers, in as short as possible, the most questions on that.
Thank you, Ada. And what I'm excited about also is, the fact that in addition to the resources you've mentioned, it can potentially also offer access to e-learning. We have received so many questions, and I'm just going to read the first question, and I'm going to ask Dr. Eugene Kemp if he would respond to the question. And the question is, what is a good way or the best way to measure the effectiveness of employee wellness interventions? Eugene, what is the best way to measure the effectiveness of employee wellness interventions? Not sure if Eugene is still on the forum. If not, Carmen, would you like to take that question? Carmen? Also not available. Okay, is there any other panelists that would like to respond to the question, what is a good way or the best way to measure the effectiveness of employee wellness? Anyone from the panel, maybe?
Yeah, the only,
Chris, yes.
of course, yeah. But I would already have a question. What was your wellness intervention? What was the goal? What objective were you pursuing with that wellness intervention? Because I cannot come up with an indicator or a direct or indirect indicator if I don't know what the objective was. But in general, I'm not, if you listen to what I said, I'm not very much in favor of using targeted indicators for interventions,
Yes.
because I want to use indicators that measure work, with all aspects of work being part of my integrated indicator approach. I will not have an engaged workforce if my turnover rate of staff is very high. That is clear. So there is a whole set of indicators you can use, but everything depends on what is the objective you are pursuing. If you are pursuing what I said, the organization where people are able and willing to do their best work, then I would use as indicator, I would use a participative dialogue, like appreciative inquiry, to measure how the people themselves, actually the people on the work floor, how they perceive their work environment, how they perceive their situation. Are they in balance as individuals with their work situation? Do they see room for their aspirations, for their career? So none of the traditional indicators, actually. But as I said,
Yes.
it depends on what your objective was.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Chris. And then I'm unfortunately also going to direct the next question to you, because I know it's something that you and I have discussed recently. Can one possibly use ISO 45003 to look at a wellness program?
Yes, you can, but don't speak out loud. As soon as you talk to your workers that you will look at their mental health with a standard, you will already lose 90% of them. So I would say, yes, use it, but use it for yourself to distill the elements that you want to make part of your approach. But don't say it out loud that you're going to use an ISO standard to measure or to implement a mental health program in your company. You reduce people to a standard. Don't do that. Use the elements of the standard.
Thank you so much for that. So unfortunately, we are unable to respond to all of the many questions. I think that would take an entire hour session. But on behalf of Safety Cloud and the management, I would like to thank you for dialing into this webinar and attending. I think it was tremendously insightful, and it just once again reinforced the need for training and for digital solutions. I think it is quite evident that people are concerned about the stigma associated with it, and that there's actually not a one-size-fits-all approach. I think it came out very clearly from what Chris said, and the fact that at the bottom, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's involved, HSE or HR. At the end of the day, it's about, as Chris has rightly pointed out, understanding work and understanding the individual that does the work. And I think if we manage to integrate and to marry those two, whether it's with training or whether it's with digital solutions, that then we have really achieved our objectives. So once again, thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you to all our panelists. It's been great having you online, and thank you for sharing your questions with us and your insights. I'm wishing you a very pleasant weekend, and for those in Europe, although Chris says it's raining, Chris, I hope it's not too rainy. I wish you a very healthy and a very safe weekend. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay well. Bye-bye.